This is going to be more of a discussion for us. I am just moderating the discussion. So, at just sort of general etiquette for this kind of discussion on the webinar, we are recording. So if someone wasn't able to attend but wanted to figure out what we had talked about, they will be able to do that. So we want people to be able to unmute and talk. But if you are not in the middle of saying something, I would ask that we mute so we don't get that background noise and possible feedback. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Joan, are people able to unmute at this point?
I believe so, but if not,
Okay.
I will.
We are able.
Oh, good. Hello, person.
Hello, my name is Kellyanne.
Hello.
Hi, Kellyanne.
Hi.
And also, just to start out, my name is Laura Vogel, and I'm the chair of the education community with the association. And we have these monthly calls, and this year we wanted to try to make them practical for our members and a place where we can discuss issues that we're all dealing with, or a large number of us are dealing with. There are 345 members in our community last time I checked. So we're not looking for 345 attendees for each one of these calls. So anywho, so starting out, if we can go to the next slide, Joan. Why do we bother with evaluations at all? It's a lot of paper. It's a lot of work. We can never perhaps figure out how to do it exactly the way we want to. So I just like folks to kind of share what they're trying to get out of evaluations when they evaluate their educational efforts.
Okay. This is the opportunity to provide an open dialogue. Hopefully everyone has been unmuted or has unmuted themselves. There is a chat window so if any reason you cannot talk or be heard by others, please let me know and I will try to work the tech on my end to make that possible.
This is Nancy. I think one of the reasons we evaluate is to see what we did right and what we could do better.
Thank you, Nancy.
This is Matthew Cole. I agree with that. We don't do very elaborate evaluations. And a lot of times I think people either ignore them or they say, yeah, everything was great and don't give us much useful. But when they say, man, the one thing the instructor did really sucked, then we know we have something to act on.
Thank you, Matt.
And Laura, this is Christy. Since most of my programming is more general public programming, drop-in style, come to the chef series, leave the chef series, it's hard because it's so kind of porous in a sense that we really, haven't done much with it. Besides using the number of people who come over time, to give some sense of people still seem to be responding, or, it's the programs get a lot of people coming, and people at the end may just tell you, God, that was great. I never knew that about how to use tomatoes that way. I don't know, but it's all kind of more idiosyncratic and not, nothing that's, where we have real hard and fast statistics or quotes or what have you to back up anything.
Exactly. Yes.
Kellyanne, I agree with that very much. Working in a conservatory and public garden, a lot of our or at least the programming that I am in charge of and manage, is drop-in. It's for families, it's for children to sort of really kind of investigate into sort of play, really, and just get a better sense of what's happening in the gardens or, you know, during the show. So a lot of our feedback is either internal. We have the staff or the volunteers give us feedback, but we do more talking. So it's very much anecdotal. If there isn't a lot of hard evidence or documentation, you know, we try not to put it on paper. So I'm not sure that's the best way. So I'm curious what other people's experiences are.
Absolutely. Is there anyone on who works with school programs, field trips, for instance?
Yes.
Hey, Laura, this is Amy. I work with school programs.
Okay. And why do you evaluate school programs? And I know you're going to be talking a little bit more, so I don't want to steal your fire either.
Yeah, I think our number one thing is, how are we serving teachers? Are there things we could do that would be more convenient for them? What makes it easy for them to come visit us? So it's usually just trying to get feedback about our programs and how we can make things easier and what they need, basically.
Thank you for that conversation, guys. Also, full disclosure, I'm going to try to mute myself in between. This is Laura. But if you hear children crying in the background, this would be mine.
And we do. And now they're recorded for posterity.
Excellent. Yes. So thank you for that conversation, you guys. And I think at this point, let's move to the next slide, Joan, which also has a link.
Sure. Colleen, if you're on the line, I see that you have a hand raised and that you're self-muted. So I just wanted to make sure that you were being heard.
I just logged in, so all I heard was kids crying and her saying, "If you hear my kids crying." I have headphones. I will try. I don't know if this works or not.
So a few folks offered up some of their materials and thoughts on their evaluation processes. So this is something that Amy shared from Red Butte Garden. So if you can click on that link, Joan, it should take us to the PDF that she created.
I'm there.
Perfect. You want to take it from here, Amy?
Sure. I kind of just did a little snapshot of the different things I could think of within our education department that we do evaluate, how we do it, and then the things we've had a struggle with and things we have found really successful. So I already talked a little bit about our outreach program and our school programs and how we evaluate those. Another really fun one that we did was within our new garden, which is our water conservation garden. We stationed some different volunteer docents to simply observe what guests were saying about the garden as they walked through. And they would just make observations in a notebook or type it down on their tablet or iPhone, and kind of just make note of how guests were evaluating or, you know, looking at the interpretive materials. So that was kind of fun. They also approached people with kind of like a survey type questionnaire for guests if they were willing to take it, and they logged all of those responses. And we're hoping to use all of that feedback for a bigger interpretive plan. So it was kind of a test run for our brand new garden, and I think we'll end up probably doing it garden-wide, both kind of informally, passively observing what people think, and then also addressing them directly and asking them specific questions. That was kind of fun. We take a lot of surveys online. We try to incentivize them. That turns out to be quite a bit successful. If they can get, teachers, for instance, will get a seed packet for their program if they fill out an evaluation for us. So we found that we get the most response rate when we can give something back, which is no surprise. But a few challenges is just finding the time to gather that feedback and implement it into the programs and really use it, change things up to make it better for people. And then also we've just noticed that some people love certain things that other people hate. So just finding a middle ground and choosing questions that will help us find a middle ground rather than just ask for opinions and get all sorts of data that we can't do a whole lot with. So it's kind of my little spiel. I guess if anybody has questions on what we do, or Laura, if you wanted me to talk specifically about anything else, I can go into more detail.
This is Lila Anderson from the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden. Just had a question about, I have a lot of contracted adult educators that come in, teach a class, and we do online surveys for the participants, but just wondering if you have a way of, I guess, sharing feedback with instructors, or if you have a tool for instructors to actually evaluate you or the organization and the way they have found their communication with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know a little bit about this because I used to be the assistant to the person who oversees adult classes. I'm kind of speaking from the past. I don't really know what the current system is, but I know that we usually meet with instructors individually, and we have a little bit of a contract with them that is kind of rolled into that process. So we ask them to give the evaluation that we have, and then at the end we meet again with the instructor once the class is finished, and we kind of ask them questions that we want to get feedback from them, and that helps us move forward, decide if we want to schedule it again. We have someone it's really kind of a one-on-one thing between the manager and the instructor. And it's kind of written into their contract that they'll provide that for us.
That's interesting. Thank you. Is there a way that you formalize that, or for also what you're talking about, in the garden with the docents, how do you kind of track that data in a way that is sort of helpful to you?
Yeah, so we used a specific questionnaire for the docents that would approach people and ask them for feedback. It was kind of just someone's carved out questions. And we actually borrowed this model from a museum that does this throughout their exhibits. So I could try to get a template of the specific questions we asked if you guys would be interested and post that somewhere.
That would be great. I was just thinking I would love to see that, Amy.
Sure.
We can also, you can see that there are handouts that are part of this webinar. We can also create that as a part of the webinar package.
Perfect.
In our post recording. So
awesome.
Laura
so we
and
could
anyone else, you can
we
send
could access
information to us.
That's cool. So then after the webinar is over, Joan, then we can go back into the recording of it and then access those other documents.
Theoretically, and I'm going to check with Ken Annan, our systems person here, to package that. He'll be doing the final assembly.
Neat. Well, that would be a fun way to kind of, give it a trial, because that's a great idea. I mean, that's a great capability.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically.
To bundle all of that together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Amy. We can maybe move on to the next one now. And Idaho Botanical Garden shared 2 surveys, and I have just blanked on your name. I'm so sorry.
It's Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing these. And if you click on those, that'll take us to kind of the same view from before, Joan.
Do you want to start with the field trip or boot both of them up at the same time?
Doesn't matter to me. So this one,
this is the field trip.
This one, it's for the field trip one. Yeah, so it's just to get some feedback from the teachers about the whole process of the field trip. the scheduling, the pre and post visit materials that are available to them, and then how the field trip goes as well. That once upon a time we would mail hard copies out with a confirmation letter as well as the evaluation form, and that way we got a lot more back because the teacher would bring the form with them. But then now we've started emailing all that information to them, and it's sort of far and few between to actually get an evaluation back. So I guess we should think about maybe handing the form over during the tour, and perhaps we would get it back before they leave the grounds. One of the most useful things about this form is that for me as an education director, I cannot observe all the field trip programs that are going on, and so this gives the teacher a chance to evaluate what we call the garden teacher that's leading the tours, to see if there's any problems with their approach and so forth. And so we can see when the staff's doing really well, and then also point out areas that we might need to work with them to improve their performance in the future.
Are you ready for the adult education
Sure.
version? All right.
Yep. So it's a very similar way of asking questions that we usually put those out on the chairs of the folks, so everybody has a form in hand when they come to the class, either a lecture or workshop, and the vast majority of the folks do fill them out and leave them behind. We also make an announcement, please, fill out your survey before you go. And so we find out about the value of that particular session of the group. We can see if they thought that was an effective instructor. And then also at the bottom, we can ask questions about what sort of things they might like to learn about in the future. And so some of those different questions can be changed over time. So there's the question that one of the last questions is about the length of the class or when it should meet. And once you feel you have enough information about that topic, you can ask a different question that you want to investigate.
Do you find that you have better responses from the in the class, like written paper survey, than if you did a digital format?
Yeah. So if you have somebody has it in their hand right then they can quickly fill it out and leave it. But after the fact, just based upon from the school teachers, we haven't tried this for the adult classes. I think there'd be a much lower return rate. I don't know if if it could be like a quick Survey Monkey sort of a thing. It'd be worth a try. I haven't.
We've switched over to digital surveys, and I'm trying to decide whether it makes sense. It definitely makes data collection and like looking at the numbers easier. So I was just curious, do you have like a volunteer? Or are you entering this data after classes so you can look at it, or what's your system for that?
Yeah, for the field trips, just sort of look at it, and then some of them I save, otherwise they just get recycled. But I do ask a volunteer to tabulate the ones from the adult classes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I like the digital survey. I'll look into that.
I'm just curious what an Idaho Statesman is and how they're advertising your classes.
Oh, it's the local newspaper. And so, we just send PSAs out to the media and they get listed or not.
I was envisioning a local politician.
That's cute.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Are there other questions?
Okay, sorry, this is Christy. I'm just looking at the bottom, and this is totally not really related to evaluations as such. But what is garden calendaring? That's a neat topic.
That's when it's sort of like a garden journal, and then you keep track of what you do each month.
Neat.
And
got
this
it.
is the time I need to start my seeds, etc.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure.
The last one is me. So just a sort of glimpse into our world here. I have been in my position at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum as adult education manager for 2 years. And in that time, we started with print forms just like Elizabeth. And then we went to an all-in-one Google form. And then we tried Qualtrics, which we have access to through the university. It's not a service that everybody can have. It's really great if you want to do research, but it's a little complicated for our purposes. So with all of those, it just took a lot of effort to, with the print piece, compile that information. We found with adult classes, those print evaluations, people would just circle down the same number like all the way through. So it's like, how was the instructor? How was the materials? How did you learn what you thought you would learn? They just go 4, 4, 4, 4, or 3, 3, 3, 3. So we didn't feel like it was very good data. It seemed like they were in a hurry. And then we didn't get a lot of in-depth comments when we did that as well. You know, people would just say, oh, this was great, or it was okay. We wouldn't like get anecdotal information about how they felt about the class. So then we switched to the online. We tried Google Forms, which is actually, you'll see a link below where we're using Google Forms again. That's just a very simple free survey service. It was too hard to download and filter the data from that. And I have been trying to do something where it's all the classes in one evaluation rather than a separate evaluation for each of our 200 classes. So that just made it an awful lot of information in one place, and it was unwieldy. I thought Qualtrics could handle it better, but it really can't. So we actually just, like last month, have been spending a lot of time talking about this. And the latest iteration for adult education classes is to send an email that says, how was your class? Click on one of them below, and there's a happy face and a sad face picture. And when they click on the happy face, Joan, if you want to open that, this is all they get. So they can, you know, we're expressing appreciation that they had a good time. There's a little bit of space for them to tell us why they had a good time. And then if they want to get in touch with us, it's right there. And then the other one, if you click on the sad face, they have the same opportunity to tell us what went wrong, to like vent about their experience and give us their contact information if they want us to lend an ear so they can complain to us in person or over the phone. So for me, this is a way to just capture the gut reaction of our students. Right after class, it's easy to send. It all goes to the same place. And I can, the spreadsheet that this data goes into through a Google form will alert my email inbox. I'll get a ping that says, hey, somebody just added to the, I actually call the spreadsheet the sad face spreadsheet. So I know when I go in there that I'm going to be dealing with unhappy customers. So it makes it much easier to be prompt about dealing with the experience they just had. So that's just one. What we did instead of trying to do it all in one complicated survey is that we're doing that gut reaction piece with the happy face, sad face. We're looking at having an in-class volunteer evaluator who attends the class for free so that we can get a lot of information from them. And then doing marketing surveys maybe annually with either a drawing or a really nice coupon for people who fill out that survey. So that's what we're doing instead, 3 instead of 1, but I think it's going to be much more helpful. And then the last piece, when we do large events like conferences, we do send out a survey, but this is what we do with the results. We use the conference branding looks darker somehow. There we go. And it's basically a double-sided one-page archival piece that tells you about the conference, who attended. The biggest piece, this bottom right-hand box here, 84% strongly agreed or agreed that they have a better understanding of how to protect pollinators in their own landscapes through their work or organizations. That's powerful. That's what we really want from that survey, is to know that kind of information. But then you also have quotes on the bottom, I think. This is just one. We do maybe 5 conferences a year, so we have an awful lot of these. Yes, there's quotes at the bottom from the survey. So we find this a really valuable tool. We rely very heavily on committees to help us make these conferences happen, committees of experts. And so we also depend on donors and endorsing organizations. So this is something we can share with them when we're doing this conference again, to say, look at the impact this has. We want your money, we want your time, we want your expertise, we want your audience to market too. So this has been really, really useful for us as a way to use the survey results for the conference. That's what I had. Does anybody have any questions?
So Laura, this is Christy. Do you have, like, I understand for the pollinator conference, this is the summation of what you got from the evaluations. Can you post like a sample of the actual evaluation you used?
Oh, for sure.
It is kind of neat to see that before and after, because I really love this idea.
Yeah,
and it's nice to see it at a glance and in the way that you presented it.
Exactly. And this is a combination of survey data and just information about the event too. So, 170 participants, that's not from the survey. We just know that from our registration.
Right, exactly. It's nice having kind of those numerics as well as the feedback.
Yeah, I can definitely share that.
Cool. And can I ask you about when you said you have a volunteer who serves as an in-class evaluator? What does that mean? Are they doing kind of more observational things so they can report back that, God, everybody was just captivated by the instructor and they didn't even want to break? Or what are they actually doing? Or do they have some kind of form?
So that is actually in transformation right now. But what we've been doing in the past, they're basically a not-so-secret shopper.
Okay, yeah, right.
They check everybody in, so everybody knows they're related to the Arboretum, and I introduce them to the instructor, so it's not like the instructor doesn't know that they're there. But I equip them with a class description. They take the class for free, and they sit in that class and take notes on how they think it went, their reaction to it. And also, if anything bad happens, they have my cell phone, so they can call me and get me in there.
Right.
So that's what it's been in the past. I think what we're going to be doing is really training them more in some evaluational skills. But I don't have a lot of details about what that's going to look like yet.
Got it.
Any other questions?
Yes, this is Nancy. You had mentioned about the GutLevel, that you implemented the new GutLevel program with the happy, sad face, happy face. How is that working for you right now?
I don't really have data yet. Actually, just got approved from my adult education team for it yesterday. But it's been a long time. See, this inspired me to do some work, you guys. Thank you very much. But what I'm hoping, when we do evaluations, the other challenge with those is you definitely do not get as many completed evaluations online as you would a paper evaluation in the class, because they're more of a captive audience for that paper one. But they're also in the room still. They want to maybe head out the door, or the instructor's in there too, and they're afraid if they write something bad, the instructor's going to read it over their shoulder. So I felt like I got less electronic evaluations, but they were more honest and had more detail. I'm hoping, because this is so quick, that I will be able to raise the percentage of return I get on an electronic survey. And I'll be able to, more importantly, decrease my response time for people who want to hear back from us. So our Qualtrics and our Google Form, like electronic survey, I don't think we ever got above maybe 33% return rate. It was pretty low. That was good. We got a third of the class to respond. So I'm hoping we can get above 33% with this. And I'm fully aware, if someone just felt like it was okay and they're not a happy or sad face about it, they're not going to click on one, and that's fine with me. I don't necessarily need to capture that. If they don't have something that they feel very strongly about that they need to share with us, that's okay. I don't need to hear from them. So I don't know yet, but I'd be happy to let you guys know in a month or so how it goes.
Yeah, it almost would be neat to do a follow-up, kind of evaluation thing, maybe more towards the end of the year.
That's our plan.
Yeah. All right. No, cool. Because then there's more to, you can kind of continue the story.
Right. Absolutely. Anyone else have any more questions or thoughts on this?
We do have a few questions that have been included on the questions section. I'm pulling up what I can here. We have just purchased an iPad, and we can ask teachers to complete a short questionnaire on it before leaving. Usually this is when kids are using the washrooms, putting boots on, etc. before leaving. We also send a follow-up email requesting more detailed feedback. Sorry, I'm not sure who asked that, but wanted to make sure that was brought up to the group.
Actually, that's a good idea, too, with the iPad.
Absolutely. Joan, did you say that there were some other questions on there, too, or just that one?
I see one immediately above it, but I'm wanting to make sure I include that, and I'm pulling down what I can here.
And Joan, I think you're the only one who can see it, right? Because I'm not seeing anything in my questions box, but
I'm trying to look at the view, and my default says attendees should be able to see the questions, but if not, I'm happy
maybe I can pull down something. No, looks like mine's expanded. It just comes up as a blank white space with a little other space that says enter a question for staff and then send. But because I know a lot of times you can see the ongoing kind of conversation, if you will, on that right-hand side.
Right. And as far as I know, I've been being able to select all of the attendee preferences. So,
well, maybe while you're looking at that, Joan, we can move on to the next part.
There is one other question. Is anyone doing evaluation when trying to reach new audiences? More like market research than evaluating a program, I guess. And that's from Ellen at Centennial.
This is Laura. We are not doing like market research evaluations, but we do have a regional coalition of institutions that offer adult education, and we have done events where we have sort of meet your institution nights. So that's not an evaluation at all, but that's how we try to reach new audiences.
Okay. Michelle has a question. So she says, sorry, I don't have a mic today. We've used QR codes on a bookmark that our educators give to each chaperone at the conclusion of the program. That QR code takes them to SurveyMonkey, and they can complete the survey on their bus ride back to school. We have had a much better response from teachers. Anyone else using QR codes?
should be able to just see other people's comments. I'm not seeing anybody's comments.
I don't want to be the only one talking, but this is Laura again, and we have used QR codes. We put them in thank you cards to students in the past. It's kind of handy.
Okay.
We at Denver Botanic Gardens, I know marketing used them for some things for a while. I don't think they're using them regularly now.
Right. Yeah, this is Christy at Chicago Botanic. I would echo Matthew's, but it's an interesting, it's an interesting idea in that sense of, using it in an eval like that, because people do have that bus ride back to school, and it can, be that kind of dead time where you can get them to fill something out. So it's actually it's a clever idea in that, in that setting.
Any other questions, Joan?
I have seen another one come up. Colleen, please just let me know if we've already commented that. Not a question, but a comment. Is anyone doing evaluation when trying to reach new audience? Oh, I'm sorry. Ellen, and I think, did we already do this? Is anyone doing evaluation when trying to reach new audiences? Yes, I believe we have gotten that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, there's no other in the queue.
Okay. Let's move on because the next piece has a lot of discussion involved. I'm going to just remind everyone to mute their mic when they're not talking and unmute it if they'd like to talk. So at the risk of telling you something you already know, I thought the way that we could organize the rest of our discussion is by SWAT. SWAT is an acronym in which you go over something that you're working on, current strengths, current weaknesses, and then looking into the future of that project or area that you're focusing on, opportunities and threats in it. So that's just kind of the way we're going to organize our thoughts. And at this time, this is the end of my very simple presentation. So you can keep this page up if you want, or Joan, we can switch to the note, the Google Doc notes that we have. But just know, even if you don't switch over to that, Joan, it's totally up to you. We will be taking notes on this next section that will be made available to everybody afterward.
Okay.
Give
me a minute to switch over to my notes.
Sure.
I have many things on my drive. I have too many things on my drive. That is. There we go.
Christy, I can take notes, or you can. Up to you.
You know what? Here, hon, why don't I start? But then I have a meeting at 1:00, so I'm going to have to leave promptly. Do you mind taking over if the discussion is still going on?
Oh, that's fine.
Perfect.
All right. So, this is kind of hard for us sometimes, but what do you all like about the evaluations that you are currently using? What are the strengths?
This is Lila from the Des Moines Botanical Garden. we were using paper surveys. We just switched to digital with SurveyMonkey. And that's actually been really helpful. And what I like about it is that I can sort by the questions. The first question of the survey, we say, what class, are you evaluating? And then I'm able to pull up an individual class and sort of look at all the data at once based on that filter. So it's a nice way that you can kind of have all that information in one area. The other thing that we found that was helpful in increasing kind of responses is we incentivized it not for every response, but if you take the survey, then you can be entered in to win like a class credit for $35. So that seems to have been helping to sort of increase our response rate on that.
Hey, Laura, this is Christy. Thank you for typing. I cannot get into the document. It's not letting me enter.
Happy to do it, Chris. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lila. And did I spell your name right? I'm sorry.
No, you did. It was kind of shocking, actually. Thank you.
Haha. Who else is feeling like they've got part of a good thing going on, at least, that you'd like to share? I know it's rough. Go ahead.
So this is Christy, and I always thought like, oh my God, I do like nothing. What I'm realizing is, gosh, when when you're face to face with people, getting anecdotal information, it actually can be quite helpful. And you're right there with people. We're with our audience kind of all the time. And again, maybe they, because they tend to like you, they tend to be more positive. Because that's what I grapple with a little bit too is, just with evaluations in general, I think people sometimes, they tell you kind of what you want to hear. Unless they are so upset because the instructor never showed up or something got canceled, that they're really feeling strongly that, so there's that whole bias, thing too. But anyway, that you can, maybe I'm getting more than I realize.
This is Frederique. I think when we pointed out to me by one of our staff instructors that said, "Gee, your class evaluation seems to be more about how your department wants to do things than about how the instructors do their teaching." And she wanted more feedback on her instruction. And I really see that, I have basically stood at the door before and like, you enjoyed the class today, and I've learned some really interesting things that way. I also want to reinforce, since I'm talking now, that I think that people do often tell us what we want to hear. And so everybody said, sure, I got a good value out of this class, but I kind of like to know why people in the community that market research. We're only interviewing the people who do some. I'd like to know why some people don't.
Frederique, you're cutting in and out a little bit, so I
okay.
Yeah. There you are. Yes. So I think I'm capturing some of what you're saying, but let me know if I'm not getting all of it.
Yeah, that's it. Why are people not taking classes that, we're only asking the people who are taking them if they had a good value. Every once in a while I talk to people who say, I don't take your classes because they're too expensive. Those people are not evaluated because they're not in the class.
Exactly. Yep. else has some thoughts here? And we've moved on to weaknesses too.
This is Nancy. Can I go back to a strength?
Sure.
We've tried a couple different techniques for evaluation. We find we get the most information, I think, similar to Christy's, but it's not quite face-to-face, but we just ask open an email. We don't do a survey. We just send an email. Thanks for attending. Please let us know what you liked or areas for improvement, and we get some great comments that way.
And that was Nancy, right?
That's right.
Okay. That's great. And, you know, actually, I spoke to Matt Ross from Longwood recently, and that's kind of what they've been doing, is just sending out an email asking people for their input. So sometimes the simplest thing can be pretty powerful. All right.
Is this working now, guys? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. It hasn't been working before. A strength of ours, this is Elin from Allen Centennial Garden. A strength at the end of all of our evaluations, we ask if there are any program ideas or workshop ideas that folks would like to see in the future. And we've actually had a lot of success with that in generating new program ideas based on what our audience is interested in.
Oh, thank you very much. There's a bit of background noise there. I didn't catch your name. Thank you.
It's Lila from Allen Centennial Garden.
Perfect. All right. Let's perhaps at this point move on to weaknesses. And I feel like this might be our longest list. What is it that frustrates you the most about your evaluation process right now?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Okay, so what is it about your evaluation process right now that frustrates you? What are the weaknesses of your evaluation process?
So this is Christy. I think my biggest frustration is I feel like it's so haphazard that I don't really have a process. You know, it's something that's kind of out there, but you're so tied up doing other aspects of the programming that it's just, that's just too much, which is sad to say. Yes, exactly. It becomes this afterthought that doesn't even get thought about.
Hi, this is Joan, moderator. If there is someone that has a lot of ambient noise in the background, could they mute themselves, please? Thank you.
So for us, we want information that is put immediately into a useful place. So, print evaluations you have to add into a database or something. And we want to be able to play with the data at the end in as many ways as possible. And so I was trying to do everything all at once in one survey, and it just ended up being just long enough that nobody wanted to fill it out necessarily, and long enough on the back end that the data, even in Qualtrics, was just too unwieldy for me to even deal with and get the kind of information I wanted. So splitting it up is not ideal, but I'm hoping that's a solution for me. Anyway, it's a lot of work, and by the time you actually get the process set, that you have this survey and you're sending it out, however you do it, or you're printing it, you're just left with no time to actually do anything with the end result, right? You just sort of file it away. So you have it, great, but you don't do anything with it. I think that's a definite weakness more than one of us experiences.
this is Elin from Allen Centennial again. A downside for us too, as someone else has mentioned, is that we are only getting survey data from people that are attending our programs. And as we're trying to grow our program offerings and our educational opportunities, we really want to be getting information from people that are not attending. So it's probably more, goes back to that market research question of how do we reach those people that are not attending and ask them the right questions so that we can be bringing in new people and getting new insights into what we're currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is Daniel. Can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought I'd add, we actually did address that this year by adding those kinds of questions into our visitor, it's our guest experience survey that's run by our marketing department. And we just got 2 questions in there about if you take classes, and what we were really interested in was the people that said no. And so we couldn't put in a lot of questions because this was about the entire guest experience, but we haven't sent it out yet, and I am eager to see information from that demographic, and we just worked with another department and folded it into their survey.
This is Nancy. Daniel, what were your 2 questions that you were limited to?
I could pull it up relatively quickly if I could get back to you about that. I mean, it was essentially, we asked people why they hadn't taken a class here before, so that they could say it was either too expensive, or the times don't work, or they didn't even know that it was an option, or that it's just really not what they're interested in doing, one related to their experience at the gardens. And then we asked people if they thought they might be interested in taking classes, what topics would interest them, so that, you know, again, that sentiment that's been expressed a few times, the topics that might interest this group that isn't taking any classes might be different than the list that you're getting from people that are taking classes. I think those were the 2.
Thank you, Daniel. That's great. Okay, so I realize we're fast approaching 1, and this is a noon to 1 phone call, so I do want to try to wrap things up here. What plans do you all have for the future, maybe from this call or the other thoughts you have at your institution about how you can improve the evaluation process you have at your organization?
Yeah, we're having this year, just to make it easier, we're just having everyone do the application. And since you're coming back for year 4,
sorry, Laura, that was really garbled.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me try one thing, see if it's better. Okay, so I'm just asking, you know, from your own plans at your gardens, or from this phone call. Maybe that's too bold to say that. Do you have any ideas about how you can improve your evaluation process? For instance, are people thinking about going from paper to digital, or digital back to paper, or changing the way they do things that they want to share?
Laura, I'm glad your regular voice is back. It sounded like we were, I mean, at least on my end, it sounded like you were in a creepy horror film.
Oh, that was a heater because I went in the basement because my children aren't screaming in the basement.
Oh, funny.
Okay, so as an example, I apologize that this question sounds strange. So for me, the opportunity is to really, it's what I described in my example there earlier on, to take one survey basically and split it into multiple parts. So we really get thorough answers to each part.
Right.
Okay.
Is anyone thinking about doing focus groups, or has anyone done focus groups? Because that's another piece that I think could be a real opportunity for a lot of us. Nobody?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Heather from Longwood. And we are getting set to do kind of one of our first focus groups this Friday. We're doing it to evaluate if our community read program would be a good fit into classrooms. And we're really excited to get actual input from teachers. That way we're not shaping a whole program and hoping it's what they want. Instead, we'll have their actual input so we know it's kind of what they desire.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing.
No problem. I wasn't sure my microphone was working there for a minute.
Yes. All right. Well, we got through SWO, not necessarily to T. So I hope this was somewhat helpful to you all. I realize it's better to have these things in person, but you know, we're all over the place. So this is also a great tool for us to continue to get used to. These notes are in a document that Christy or I can share with everyone afterward to make sure that you get these notes. And then Joan is looking into a way to get those files shared either through this webinar, or we could do it through possibly the community page, I think, Joan?
Possibly, yeah. They become a library. They become part of the resource library.
Okay.
And we can, I guess the first solution is to send handouts that are pertinent to this webinar, and then I will work it out so that they are bundled together. And then we can discuss offline if we want to create separate evaluative tools or a sample document with multiple pages with different evaluative tools in it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Guys, thank you for the call. And we haven't determined the next month's call, but just generally speaking, we still would love to crowdsource topics and speakers if you're interested at all. Let Christy or Amy or I know. We do have a form that we've shared in different ways on the community page, for instance. But when people aren't able to come up with topics, we'll have sort of moderated discussions like this, just as a platform basically for us to share ideas and concerns and thoughts about a variety of education topics within public gardens. So I hope you'll kind of keep your ears to the ground and join us again when a topic interests you.
Third Thursdays at noon Central Time is the standing time frame for the calls, and we also discussed whether or not it was going to be in every other month. So I know that this is up to you all to program and notify the section and the community of any upcoming education opportunities there.
Thanks, Joan. I think that wraps up our call. So I hope everybody has a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Great day.
All right, thanks.